Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to go over 3-3 scientific notation, and by the end of today you should be able to write numbers in scientific notation and divide numbers that are in scientific notation. Our first thing is the steps when dividing numbers that are in scientific notation. We need to divide the numbers in front of both, and remember, we're going to take that parenthesis, and we're not going to call it parentheses, we're going to call it the times symbol. So that times symbol. And then step 2, we go through and we say we're going to subtract the exponents of the powers of 10. Step 3, we need to change the decimal place, and this is only if it's needed. So the new number is expressed in scientific notation. So if we have numbers, if we need to move our decimal place to the left, then we're going to add to the exponents. If we have to move our decimal place to the right, then we subtract. So for example, using those steps, the very first thing here is we notice it says find the quotient without a calculator, and we need to express it in scientific and standard notation. Standard notation is just a number. So the very first step, step 1, says divide numbers in front of time symbols. So I take the 1.2 and I divide it by 3. And we need to get used to writing it in this format, so make sure you write it like this. And then from there, the next thing, step 2, says I need to take the bases that are 10, and I need to subtract their exponents. So I need 10 raised to the it's negative 2 minus 7. Now simplifying, I take 1.2 or 12 and divide it by 3, which gives me 0.4 times 10 raised to the negative 9. Now notice this is not in scientific notation. The decimal needs to move over 1, and I'm going to move it to the right. So step 3 states that if I move it to the right, I need to subtract 1 from the exponents. So I move it right, and I subtract 1 to give me a 4.0 times 10 to the negative 10th. That as a number, I would write down, and notice I'd say probably 10 zeros, and it's a decimal, so I'm going to put 10 zeros on the other side of the 4. And then I would count from there 10 decimal places, which would put me right here. Our second problem on this page, we notice step 1 is to take the numbers and divide the numbers that are in front of the time symbols. So I take 5.5 and divide it by 5. Step 2 is to take the bases that are the same, so those base 10s there, and I subtract their exponents. So I have a 10 raised to the negative 10 minus 12. And if you remember or you recall, negative negative makes a positive. So simplifying this through, I get a 5.5 divided by 5, which is 1.1 times 10 raised to the positive 2. And that's because negative 10 plus 12 is 2. And since it's a positive, I need to move this decimal over 2 positions, 2 place values, which gives me 110 as my number. Our next section, we're going to do the exact same thing but with a calculator, and make sure in your calculator you type this in exactly how you see it. So I'll tell you the keystrokes that you need to put in, but it'll give you either the scientific notation or the standard notation. So from here, the very first thing is you need to press open parentheses. That's above the 8 key, I believe. Let me get my calculator from here. Yeah, above the 8 key. So open parentheses, 0.2 times 10 raised to, which is that little up arrow symbol above the divide key, and then in next to that is negative 8, right, close parentheses. And then from here we need to make this turn into a fraction. So we hit alpha y equals 1, and then open parentheses, 1.2 times 10 to the negative 5th, right arrow, close parentheses. When you type all of that in, you should get something similar to, looks like I'm not able to get that picture back on here, but so from here I push all those buttons, and on the calculator the final answer that I should get is a 1.66 repeating forever, which is the same thing as writing 1.6 with the line over the top of it times 10 raised to the negative 4 power, and that's because I the e to the negative 4 on that one. And so from there, if I were to write it as a number, I'd move that decimal 4 places to the left, and as a result of that, I get a .00016, and the 6 is repeating forever. My next one, typing in that same type of thing, the keystrokes in there, make it look exactly like you see it here on your calculator. And once we do that, we should get an answer of 50,000. Once we have 50,000, we just move our decimal place over, was it 4 places, and we get a 5.0 times 10 to the 4th. Two more things. Our next one, this one looks really difficult. Type it in just like you see it on the calculator with the parentheses, and when you get to the end here, do alpha y equals 1, and then type in this bottom part in parentheses and hit enter. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Go ahead and pause. Now once you've gotten this, you should be able to get your number, which is going to be 120 million, and then I need to go through there and make it into scientific notation, which I need to move that decimal in between the 1 and the 2. So I move it all the way over there, and it looks like I've moved it 8 places, so I have a 1.2 times 10 to the 8th. Our last thing, this was the hardest thing on your assignment, and it's not super difficult. We need to convert numbers in this expression to scientific notation. So all of these numbers I need to convert to scientific notation. Then we evaluate the expression, and you can use your calculator if needed. So I'd go through here and I'd convert these. I'd notice the decimals at the end. I need to move it all the way over. So I do that. I move the decimal over and I get a 1.25 times 10, and it looks like I moved it 4 times. The next one, it's a decimal, so it's going to be a negative exponent. I move it 3 times, and that means I have a 3.4 times 10 to the negative 3. And then down below, I move the decimal twice, and it looks like it's going to be a 6.2 times 10 to the 2. I can type all of that in my calculator, and if I do, I'll get the answer as 0.685483871, which means I have to move my decimal place over 2 positions, and that means I'm going to be having times 10 to the negative 2. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. Otherwise, good luck on your homework. Have a great day.